Okay, so chapter 11, the first geneticist. Who's this first geneticist? George Mendel. Okay, he was a monk. He was a priest in monastery. Okay, where currently it's Czech Republic. Okay, he in Europe at that time, it's mid 19th century. At that time, he wanted to go to universities, okay, but he couldn't. So his next choice was become a priest because that's where you can get education at the time. All right, so he became a monk, but he was interested in biology, I guess, especially how the inheritance was done. Inheritance, why you look like your parents, and what is the rule behind this inheritance. Okay, so he had a little garden, so he did some experiment with plant. What is that plant he used? Yeah, what is that? It has name, right? What is it? Pisum sativum. Okay, that's a two name. It's binomial nomenclature. In Korean, 이명법. Okay, you use two words to specify a plant or animal. Okay, the first letter is genus name, and then second one is species name. Like human being, what is it? Homo sapiens. Okay, same way. Okay, so that's the P, garden P. When do you see this garden P? When do you see? If you order 짜장면, it comes with it, right? It comes with little peas on top of it. Okay, so he used this garden P, okay, to do some experiment. His question is, what is the rule? What is the rule behind this inheritance? Okay, in 18th century, there was no knowledge of DNA. They didn't see chromosome. They didn't know anything about it. Okay, they didn't know anything about it. But he figured out some rules behind this inheritance. So this chapter will tell you how he found it and what is the rule behind inheritance. Okay, so they call it Mendel and the black box. So we call him the father of genetics because he figured it out. He didn't know DNA, he didn't know chromosome, he didn't see any cells, but he somehow figured it out. Okay, that's an amazing thing. Okay, so what did he use? He used the P's. So if you look at page 194 in 4th edition and 192 in 5th edition, that's how, if you have garden peas, the peas, okay, in the spring you seed them, okay, and then spring the plant comes out, they have flower, and then what happened in the fall about this time? Okay, during the summer, the flower is called self-pollinated. What do you mean self-pollinated? Okay, so we have to go back a little bit. Page 464 in 5th edition, page 118 on 4th edition. One more time. That's okay. Yeah. Page 464 on 5th edition, 518. 518 in 4th edition. It's the structure of plants, structure of flower. Okay, did you find it? 못 찾았어? 다시. 5판은 464페이지고 4판은 518페이지야. 518. Okay. So a few words about plant structures. Okay. So there's two words that you have to remember. The first one is stamen. What is stamen? 수술. Okay, stamen has on top of it, it's an anther, which is 꽃밥. Okay, within those anthers, there's a pollen grains. 꽃가루가 들어있는 꽃밥이 수술 위에 있어. Okay, stamen is the 수술, and anther is the 꽃밥, and pollen grain is the 꽃가루. That's the male reproductive structure. It's like making sperm in plant. Okay. In the other end, 암술, it's called carpel. Okay, carpel has stigma as the top. It's a meaning bad word, but it's happened to be 암술머리. It's called stigma. That words you have to know. Okay, where they are. Now coming back to page 192 or 194, if you look at the purple flower of the pea, within the flower there's two structures, right? One is male, one is female. Okay, male one is male anthers where they spread out pollen grains, and female stigma is where they receive this pollen grain. If you leave, okay, the flower alone, they will self-pollinate. In other words, their sperm will meet egg in that case. Okay, and they will bear fruits, which is the peas. Okay, that's one generation going around. Okay, but next page, if you look at the next page, it's a little bit different. Okay, why do we have to know about this? Because when, let's say if you have a pea flowering purple one, if you want to have flowering white flowers, you want to mix them. Okay, the question is, if you mix them, what happens? That's the question. Experimentally, how you do it, you have to do it cross pollination. 교배를 시켜야 돼, 교배를. Okay, how do you do it? That's on page 193 or 195. Okay, before the flower opens, you open up and you get rid of all the pollen grains. You get rid of all the stamens. Okay, and then what you do is you use paintbrush, okay, paintbrush, and you touch other flowers' pollen grain, and then you touch the stigma on the flower. So in other words, artificially you cross between two different plants. Okay, it's called cross pollination. 이해가 됐어? 그럴 것 같아? 관심 없어? 그래도 괜찮아. Okay, that's how you do it. Okay. And page 194. Okay. Mendel was very, hardworking, but also he was lucky. Okay. He chose the character of peace, 7 characters listed on table 11.1. Okay, you can look at this one too. Okay. 옆에 있는 사람 교과서 안 갖고 왔으면 같이 좀 보지? 다들 이러고 있느라고 정신이 없구만. 선텐 좀 해도 되는데. Okay. So let's look at table 11.1. So he chose, okay, these characters. Okay, so they call it traits. Okay. Okay, the first one is seed shape. Either it's smooth or it's wrinkled. Okay. Second character is color of the seed, either yellow or green. Okay. So he picked these 7 characters. Okay. And he was lucky. Why? Because garden pea has 7 pairs of chromosome. Remember, chromosome number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And what happened is each character just fall in 1 chromosome sets. I don't know which one is on chromosome 1, but they are all located in a separate chromosome. Otherwise, he couldn't come up with independent assortment law. Okay, so it's different. probably he picked more characters, but he didn't understand the other, so he probably get rid of it. So he picked the 7 characters. Okay. So what is the concept of character? Okay. 덥다. Okay. So first one, we have to understand dominant versus recessive. 우성 versus 열성. Okay. Dominant means if you mix these 2 traits, okay, in first generation, F1 generation, okay, the character will show up. That's the definition of dominant. Okay, when you mixed it, the trait doesn't show up in first generation. It's recessive. Okay, for example, flower. Okay, so if you mix with purple flower with white flower in F1, what it comes out? Do you know? Purple? Yeah, good guess. Right, it's because it's dominant. They'll all show up in F1. Okay, so the idea is somehow, so the question is where this white character goes. Okay, is it disappeared, or is it mixed, or is it hidden? Okay, and if you look at the F2, the second generation, the white will show up again. So it's not disappeared. Okay. 졸리고 뭐 막 덥고 그러네. 그렇지? 좀 더 추웠어야 되는데. 오케이, 조금만 참어. Okay. All right. So that's dominant versus recessive. If you look at page 195, there is a table. Actually, he counted. Okay. So in F1, he got all the purple flower. Okay. So if let it go in F1 self pollination, he collected F2 flowers. He counted all the flowers in F2. Okay, it turned out purple flower versus white flower is approximately 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, what is the meaning of 3-to-1 ratio? Okay, so he figured it out. Okay, what is so? Okay, it's not going well. Okay, so he had 2 laws. Okay, the first law of Mendel, okay, is, what is it? Anybody know? 고등학교 때는 우열의 법칙이라고 배우지. Okay, but that's not the law. Okay, this textbook says 2 laws. Okay, the first one is dominant and recessive. It's just concept. Okay, the first law of Mendel is called law of segregation. Okay, law of segregation. What does that mean? Okay, when you mix purple and white, okay, it's not like you're mixing with coffee with cream. Okay, it's not blending in. Okay, what it means is it's mixed. Okay, but it stays there. Okay, in F1, just it will show because it's dominant. Okay, but you didn't lose this white character. It's hidden as a recessive. Okay, and what happened in F2 generation, it will segregate again. Okay, so the concept behind the first law is something. He didn't know there was a chromosome, he didn't know DNA, but the character, okay, character has to have one pair. Okay, one pair. So that's the great concept. Okay, because we know now the chromosome we have as a pair. What do we call this chromosome? Sister chromatid? No, it's homologous chromosome. It's homologous chromosome. One is from your father, one is from 시원하다. Mother. Okay, it's homologous chromosome. Okay, so we have as a pair. Okay, that's why when you make next generation, it segregates. Okay, that's the first law of segregation. Okay, so what happened is so you have, I didn't bring one more black pen. You have purple flowers. If you keep, see this purple seed, they'll keep generate all the purple. It's all pure. Okay, they have two alleles of same thing. It's called homozygous. Homozygous. Okay, the white flower is the same thing. They have two copies of white one. Okay, so if you keep next generation, it will become all white. Okay, so now you mix. Okay, so one copy from purple, one copy from white. In F1, what is the color of flower? It's purple, because purple is dominant over recessive. Okay, and F2 generation, what happened? Okay, so the law of segregation, they have to separate this. Okay, and the other gamete, in other words, egg, will have this too. Okay, so the next generation you can have this two, or this two, or in two cases you will have heterozygote, which is shown in where? In page 196. No, page 197 on 5th edition. 200. This one. This one. Okay, 200. 4th edition, page 200. Okay, so if you mix between yellow peas versus green one, okay, and then the first generation, it will come all yellow. But if you have F2 generation, okay, you will see 3-to-1 ratio of yellow and green. Okay, but if you look at their genotype, it's 1-2-2-2-1. Get it? No? Okay, so we have to think about two words again. So phenotype. Phenotype is what you see. It's called 표현형. Okay? But the genotype is behind genetic makeup. Okay? So you have two phenotypes, either yellow or green. Okay? But you have three different genotypes. Okay? One pure yellow, one pure green, and then two hybrid, heterozygote. Okay, mixed, and they will show yellow because they are heterozygotes. Okay, so you have to look up the textbook. Okay, I don't have the slide, so okay. Right, question up to this point? Okay. So now, how do we understand this one? Okay. So, because we know the genes are located on the chromosome, okay? Now we know, let's say this chromosome is from your father, and this chromosome is from your mother, okay? If you pull this thread, it's long DNA strand from here all the way to the other end, okay? So the gene is from here to here, okay? And that will make one protein that will determine whether the color of the seed or color of the flower, okay? So what we call those genes, we call it allele, okay? 뭐지? 무슨 인자? 뭐라고 번역됐지? 알아야 되는데. All right. Don't worry. You don't have to know. It's allele. A-L-L-E-L-E. Allele. Okay, that's the important word that you have to remember. Okay. So if you look at the page 202, okay, they show chromosomes. Okay, we have a pair of chromosomes, right? Pair of chromosomes, and then gene on this chromosome is called allele. Okay? So the following statement is true or false. One individual can have maximum 2 alleles. Is it true?
False.
False? Why? We have 1 allele. You have 2 alleles. If it is the same, you are homozygote. If it is different, it's called heterozygote. Okay? You can have 2 alleles, one from mother, one from father. Okay? But within this population, we can have more than 2 alleles. For example, your blood type. You can have A, 2 A's, then you're A type. You have 1A, 1O, you're still A, right? If you have 1A, 1B, you're AB. If you have 2 O's, you're O. So in other words, in population that can have many different alleles, but I can have only 2 alleles. I have 2 O's. That's why my blood type is O. Okay? Yes.
What about, for example, what about with the color of your hair?
Color of the hair. Okay, good question. That's more complex than no one gene can determine the hair. For example, many genes affect hair color.
But I mean,
Okay, which
does
one
it
is dominant?
mean that you have like 2 alleles,
Mhm.
like one for the color of your hair and one for your blood type?
No. We don't call it allele because the allele means the same gene but different form of it. Okay? allele. 이해가 됐어? 다시 한 번만 더. Okay. So you can have 2 alleles. For example, page 202. Yeah. So for example, the gene that determines the color of P, either it's yellow or green. Okay? Yellow is dominant over green. Okay? So if you have 1 allele of yellow, if you have 1 allele of green, what is your phenotype? It's yellow. You are heterozygote, but yellow is dominant over green. If you have 2 alleles of green, what is your color? It's green because they are recessive, but you have 2 of them. They will show up. Okay? The same thing. Okay? So we gone through the first law of Mendel. What is it? The law of segregation, because they have pair of whatever allele. He didn't know chromosome anything, but his concept is there's something two, one pair, okay, and it segregates for the next generation. It's perfect match with meiosis. Do you remember? You have to get rid of one set. You pick just one set, okay. All right, the second law of Mendel is a little bit more complex. It's called independent assortment. Law of independent assortment. Okay. Have you eaten a snack? It says assorted nuts.
Yes.
응? 안에 뭐 들었어?
안에 땅콩이랑
그렇지.
아몬드랑
또
무슨 이상한 과자랑
그렇지.
이상한 것들.
그렇지. 이상한 것들 먹어봤네. 술안주로, 그치? It's assorted nut means some of this peanuts, pistachio, walnut, whatever nuts. Okay, that's assorted. Okay? The second law of Mendel is called independent assortment. Okay, meaning is we talked about this one in meiosis. Okay? Let's say this is chromosome 1. And then you have chromosome 2, chromosome 3. What is independent is when you choose chromosome 1, you can choose either this one or this one. Okay, same thing. For chromosome 2, you can choose this one and choose this one. But what is independent is the first event is independent from the second event. Okay? So what do you have to do? You have to have more than one characters. You are dealing with two characters at a time. For example, the color of a flower, at the same time, the shape of beans, peas. Okay, you have to talk about two characters at the same time. Okay, now that's why it's complicated. It's called dihybrid cross. Okay, let's go to the textbook, page 200, and fourth edition is what? You're fasting. You're going too fast. 203. Fourth edition, 203. So in parental generation, what are you mixing? What are you mixing? So you're mixing, yes, two characters. The seed, yellow seed with round shape. Yellow, one character, and then seed is, the pea is round. Okay? What are you mixing with? Green peas with wrinkled. Okay? You're talking about two characters at the same time. So you mixed. Okay? In F1, what happened? On both cases, there is a dominant and recessive character, right? For example, round and yellow is dominant. So in F1, it's all round and yellow. Okay? But if you self-pollinate this one, in F2, it's more complex. You will see all four different characters. Okay? What is the ratio of it? 9-2, 3-2, 3-2, 1. That's the famous 9-3-3-1. Okay? Because you're talking about two characters at the time. Okay? Still, the first 3-to-1 ratio is there. Okay? If you combine all the yellow, combine all the green, it's a 3-to-1. If you combine all the round, all the wrinkled, it's 3-to-1. But you look at four different characters at the same time. It's 9-3 to 3-to-1. What happened? What's going on? Okay? So in other words, this is the second law. His concept is there must be one character is in the first whatever. Okay? Whether choosing yellow or green. Okay? And second trait, choosing wrinkled or round, okay, is independent to each other. Okay? Independent assortment. In other words, in first chromosome, whatever it's a yellow or green, they picked. Okay? Second chromosome, whatever it's a round or wrinkled, they picked. Okay? Independently from the first event. Okay? So you have to. 됐어? 이해가 돼? 오케이. 조금만 더 참어. 오케이. So that's the two laws of Mendel. What is the first law of Mendel? Law of segregation. What is the second one? Independent assortment. Okay, so those are two rules. So what are the words that we have to remember? Dominant versus recessive. So if you mixed it in first generation, it appears it's a dominant. Okay, it's hidden, it's a recessive. Okay, and then what is homozygous? If they have same allele, it's called homozygous. If they have different alleles, it's heterozygote. Okay, so one individual can have only two alleles. Okay, but in population we can have more than two, many alleles. Okay, it's very important in evolution. Okay, the unit of evolution is not individual; it's a population. Okay, what do you call it? Evolution. It's a change in frequency of alleles in population. Okay, so we'll come back to that point. Okay, and then what is the phenotype? What is the phenotype? 표현형. It's appearance. We can look at this character. That's a phenotype. What is the genotype? We don't see it, but it's the makeup of allele. Okay, let's say whether you have one dominant and one recessive, you're heterozygote. It's a genotype. But we don't know because it shows a yellow. okay? But it can be different yellow, pure yellow or heterozygote yellow. How do you know? You see them, and next generation, all yellow comes, and next generation, all yellow come, it's pure yellow. It's homozygote. But next generation, green, some green come out, it's a heterozygote. Okay? So anything else? Okay. And then there is a called Punnett square. Okay? There's a square on the textbook. If you look at the square, they write down genotypes. Okay? It's someone's name. His name is Punnett. So he drew this square and then, you know, calculate the frequency about. Okay? That's all you have to remember. Okay? Now, so Mendel calculated all the, you know, counted all the flowers, he counted all the peas, and he published a paper, right? But nobody cared, nobody read it, and so he died. After his death, about 20 years later, some other people did a very similar experiment and got the same result. So he was recognized. And then later, people found chromosomes and DNAs. Now they think it's a great concept. So we call them father of genetics. Okay? But statistically, his 3-to-1 ratio, okay, his data, actual data, is too perfect. Okay? So there is not much error on this. So some mathematician calculated whether this is really coming from real result, or he could have manipulated a little bit. He got rid of some bad seeds or something like that. Still, it's controversy, but his experiment was real, and his concept was very pioneering one. Okay, but we have some exceptions to his rule. Okay, it's called incomplete dominance. Incomplete dominance. What was the dominance? It's a dominant versus recessive. Okay, so if you mix it in F1, it will appear. It's called dominant. Okay, but there's some examples of incomplete dominance. Okay, some flowers have red flower and white flower. You mixed it in F1. If it is complete dominant and recessive, it should all red, right? But F1, it become a pink. Wow, what happened? Is it mixed like, color painting, red and white, it become pink? No, it's not. If you self-pollinate the pink, what happened is next one red, 2 pink, 1 white. What is it? It shows exact genotype, right? If you have 2 dominant allele, it's pink. If you have heterozygote, 2 dominant, it's red. Okay? If you have heterozygote, it's a pink. And if you have 2 white allele, and it's white. Okay? It's called incomplete dominance. Okay? That can be more understandable, because if you have 2 copies of the red genes, they will make lots of red pigments. That's why it's red. If you have only 1 red, they don't make enough red colonies. That's why it become pink. Okay? It's an example of what? Incomplete dominance. Okay? Then there's another example called codominance. Codominance. What is codominance? Both of them are dominant. Okay, good example is blood type. Okay, so if you have 1 allele of A, and if you have 1 allele of B, what is your blood type? We call it AB type. Okay, neither is dominant. Okay, both of them are dominant. This is called codominance. Okay. All right. So if you look at the picture of that family, okay, they had 2 daughters. Okay, both of them are mixed race, race. In other words, their parents are married between white and Afro-American, whatever. Okay, and they have a little bit dark complexion, the skin color. Okay, and they married. They had 2 daughters. One looks like their parents, but one is totally white with blue eyes. What happened? Their grandparents' gene has inherited and come out. Okay, that you can explain. Okay, and next one is you look around other textbook and then okay, figure 11.13. Okay, we can do the same thing. That's biology class. So what do? You lined up there based on your height. Okay, what is the shortest one in this case? 5.0. What is 5.0? 키가 어떻게 5.0이지? 5 feet 0 inches. 5 feet이면 얼마야? What is 1 feet? 30cm. 그러니까 so in this biology class, the shortest students are 150 centimeters. And who is the tallest one? 6'5". What is 6'5"? Huh? About 2 meters. Okay, and then they lined up. Okay, the white t-shirts are female students. The blue ones are male students. Okay, so tallest female is about 5'9", about 180. Yeah, 6 얼마야? 180cm. 여학생 중에 가장 큰. So they lined up. Okay, based on their heights. So what does this tell you? Okay, the gene that controls our height. Okay, it's not just one gene or 2 genes. It has many genes. Okay, so it's complex. So if the trait, okay, it's not like purple color or white color. Okay, it's more complex. Okay, it's called polygenic. Polygenic means many genes controlling this trait, phenotype. Okay, so what is the outcome of it? It's continuous. Okay, continuous variation. Okay, and that's what it is. Okay, and then one more. The last picture is the flower. Okay, it's coming from same plants. Okay, so in other words, they have all the same genotypes. Okay, but the outcome is different. Some flowers pink, some flowers white. What happened? Okay, even if they have the same gene, okay, depends on the environment. They can have different phenotype. Chapter 12, it's units of hereditary. Okay, so now we understand the concept of Mendel. Okay, chapter 12 is we understand what's going on with human diseases. Okay, so the first one is called X-linked inheritance. X-linked, what do you mean linked? Okay, X-linked means this gene that affects human disease is located on X chromosome. Okay, we call it linked. Okay, X-linked means this gene is in X. Okay, what is the character of this one? If it is usually recessive genetic disorder, okay, there is a difference between men and women in terms of how many people are affected. Okay, that's why it's X-linked human disorder. Okay, example is if you look at if you have textbook page 216, look at, can you read the number? If you cannot read this number, you are a color blindness. Okay, in your elementary school, you have this test, right? But this gene, okay, and there are a few genetic disorders, okay? In terms of the frequency between man and female is different, okay? In most cases, this is X-linked recessive disorder. Why? In female, you have two X chromosomes, right? If you have one bad copy, the other copy will help it out, okay? It will compensate. But if you're a male, what happened? You have one X chromosome and one small Y chromosome. If you have one X chromosome that is affected, then it will show up, okay? So most cases, male will show higher frequency in color blindness as well as disease called hemophilia. What is hemophilia? It's 혈우병, okay? If you have big cut, they have problem in blood clotting, okay? So these days it's okay, but in old days it's life-threatening disease, okay? So if you, okay. So you can understand X-linked chromosome. There's not much known disease about Y-linked chromosome because Y chromosome is very, very small. So not so many genes there, and then not so many traits or inheritance has been followed with Y chromosome. Okay, and then the rest of it called autosomal genetic disorder. What do you mean autosome? The chromosome that is not sex chromosome, X or Y, no. Chromosome 1 to what? 22. Okay, so if the disease is dominant, okay, if you have only one copy of it will show up, okay? But in most cases, it's recessive disorder, means you have to have two copies of the gene, okay? One example is called sickle cell anemia. What do you mean, sickle cell anemia? What is a sickle? Sickle? Do you know what is a knot? Knot? not N-O-T, but it's called a sickle. 벼베기 하는 낫. It's called sickle. In Chinese character, it's 겸. That's why they call it 겸형 적혈구 빈혈증 or 낫형 적혈구 빈혈증. Sickle cell anemia. If you look at the figure, the red blood cells should look like Dunkin' Donuts, should round, inside is a little bit, you know. But in this, if you have sickle cell anemia, this red blood cell looks like a sickle, okay? It's a shape of, you know, crescent moon, okay? So they have problem transporting oxygen. That's why it's anemia, 빈혈, okay? So it's all recessive. In other words, you have to have two copies of it, then it will show, okay? If you have heterozygote, which means one copy normal, one copy affected one, you're okay. But you are heterozygote. Or sometimes in this case, you are a carrier. You carry a gene that affects this disease. Okay, we call it carrier. Some dominant autosomal disease. Okay, example is Huntington's disease, Marfan syndrome, polydactyly. Huntington's disease is, you know, shaking body movements. They don't move very well, but it onsets around early, you know, around 40 or 50s. Okay, so before you know you have disease, you get married, you have your children. Now it will appear because it's a dominant. Okay, and so it's, you know, it's a little bit sad story, but you know. The other one is called polydactyly, means you have more than 5 digits, hands or toes. That's called polydactyly. Okay, 다지증. Okay, and the other one is called Marfan syndrome. There's very rare case, but a few cases. Sometimes this affected person is very tall, okay? So what happens is they don't know that they have this disease, okay? And they're very athletic. They become basketball team. They will make volleyball team. Example, I forgot her name, but she made a U.S. women's volleyball team in 1984, long time ago. Actually, I watched that game, Olympic game in L.A. Their final game was U.S. versus China, okay, women's volleyball game. But China won the gold medal, so U.S. won the silver medal. One of the player was Afro-American, okay, and she played professional league in Japan. But all of a sudden, during the game, she collapsed and she died. And then later, it turned out she was suffering from Marfan syndrome. Okay, another case, this young man in college basketball, he is basketball player. He played during the game, he collapsed. And it turned out to be Marfan syndrome. Okay, they don't know whether they had this disease or not. Okay, those are the dominant alleles. Okay, and then I'm going through table 12.1. If you have a textbook, go through table 12.1. You have to remember some of them are, so in the question I will ask, what is the X-linked disease? What is the autosomal recessive disease? What is the dominant disease? Okay, you have to remember. Okay. Or now, next one is called one more topic. It's called pedigree. Pedigree in Korean, 가계도. Okay. So in this genetic disorder, it's important to know about your parents' conditions, your family conditions. Okay, that's why they go through these pedigrees. Okay, so if you look at the page 219 or page 221 and fourth, this one, pedigree. Yeah. So if following your parents and your sisters, brothers, following and who is affected and who is a carrier and so on. If you look at this royal family, the best pedigree studied is in royal family because they know who married whom, and then they know how many children they had, and they know who died in Europe. But in Korean we have 족보. Okay, usually you don't write someone died there, but this pedigree is very, very important. If you look at the Queen Victoria of England, okay, start that pedigree and all the way you go to the Russian royal family. Did you see the animation called Anastasia? Disney animation? She was the last princess of Russian royal family, right? She had a younger brother, okay, who is Alexia, okay? He was suffering from hemophilia. Okay, what is hemophilia? Yeah, it's X-linked disease. Okay, where this disease coming from? You go back all the way to Queen Victoria. She was a carrier. In other words, she has two X chromosomes, right? And one X she affected, and that X chromosome came all the way to Alexia. Here's a boy. Okay, he had only one chromosome, X chromosome, and one Y, so he's suffering from hemophilia. So its pedigree is important to study these human genetic disorders. Okay, I think we'll stop here, and then next week we'll go inside and we'll finish chapter 12 and go on. Questions? Okay, that's it.